Hut reporting here for our Wednesday work show. Nick Hines with you. Hopefully, you're having a winning week. I know I already am, knowing that we're here and midweek and excited for another edition of the Wednesday work show. And it will be our West Coast racing manager, Joe Moran, East Coast, Harry Rice, who will be joining us to go through these works. Wherever you are, whether you're in Joplin, Missouri or Amarillo, Texas, feel free to stop by, send in your questions. This is a live show, so you'll have an opportunity to present those questions in which we will we'll do our best to address and answer those questions at the end of the program. Whether you're on Facebook, watching via YouTube, of course, if you're in Twitterverse, feel free to say hello, and we'll be sure to say hello right back to you. Without further ado, let's welcome in our West Coast racing manager liaison, my good friend Joe Moran, for what looks to be an action-packed week. Joe, welcome back.
Yeah, happy to be back, and we got some exciting horses to cover. Some horses that are race ready, like Forbidden Kingdom, that we're going to be highlighting. Just got entered in the San Vicente Stakes on Saturday at Santa Anita, and then also some younger horses like Hero Status, who just had his first 3/8 breeze. So a wide variety of different types of horses and different types of where they're at in their training standpoint. So it'll be fun to cover a lot of these horses.
Oh, absolutely. And I think one of the specific things in particular that we try to do is pick out, we're about accentuating the positive, but we're also about keeping it real and trying to depict, particular nuances that some of these horses may have. And we're actually, in our next Wednesday work show, we will highlight Carpe Venum, a horse that she came back with a very good third place effort last weekend, and going to kind of do some look back at a few of her workouts and then kind of play it into how she raced. And I thought she ran quite well for Phil D'Amato in a partnership with Joey Platt. So let's jump into it, Joe. First on deck here is Hero Status. This is a son of Flatter. Was purchased out of the OBS March sale last year. Was the highest priced Flatter at that sale, in which he worked 21 flat out of the Eddie Woods consignment. He went 21 flat, and he did it the right way. Owned a partnership with Dan Agnew. What is the current status with Hero Status, and how far along is he as far as workouts are concerned?
Yeah, so the work that we're seeing here was his first 3/8 breeze, and in reality, this was really just a 1/4 of a mile work. He left from the quarter pole, and you're seeing here the gallop out. He is not being asked to gallop at all, and that work got recorded on from the wire to the 7/8 to be that final 8 to complete the 3/8. So pretty impressive that he got a 3 furlong time for this. He's still in the very early stages of his training. He was a colt that had some minor tendonitis that we just decided to, not push on as a 2-year-old. He's a bigger, heavier horse, and he's probably one of the prettiest horses you'll see. You can't miss him on the track, and he's sure something to look at. I'm a big fan of him, and he's definitely caught our eye. It's still very early, of course, being realistic, but there's a lot to be excited about. And you're going to see him probably have 1 to 2 more 3/8 breezes following this and just gradually pick up the pieces. The Mark Lap barn, they do move along piece by piece in the early stages with a horse like this younger. So he had a few 1/8 of a mile breezes, really just to get back in the groove of things. He's a horse that has done this before coming out of a 2-year-old in training sale, as you mentioned. So he picks up on it pretty quick, but at the same time, you don't want to just throw him right in and get him, flying going. So, take it step by step and, you baby him along till they're fully ready to go.
So going a 3/8 of a mile as designated here, a horse that, given ample time to essentially get his sea legs together, breeze on January 21st, as you alluded to, he will progress. Noting that his sibling seems to be knocking on graduation door in Acoustic Shadow. So hopefully that is a good sign there from the Phil D'Amato barn for that daughter of More Than Ready. So nothing in particular workout-wise that stood out. Pretty conventional, would you say?
Yeah, I would say at that stage, it's all about how he's doing it. And I think that's what's really caught our eye. As I said, he's a good-sized colt for still not technically 3 yet, but he's, considered a 3-year-old. He's got this big old long stride on him. And I think that's been the biggest thing that's caught trainer Mark Glatt's eye in my eye in the mornings, is seeing how much ground he covers. And I think that's how you see him get that 3 furlong, 37-second time for that work is that he just naturally covers a lot of ground. So, the acid tests are going to start coming along as he starts to get asked to do more. But so far, he's done everything that we could ask for him.
All right, Joe, I'm going to put you on the spot. Alex Rael, he messes in. Should he buy additional shares? Over 1,200 shares still available in hero status. Here you have a newly turned 3-year-old with plenty of promise on the receiving end. I think he looks fantastic in the AM. Is this a horse that folks should consider?
Yeah, well, I can't give you any advice to buy or not buy, but let me tell you, he's done everything that we could have asked him, as I said, to this point. And he's definitely one that you see, and he sure seems to think he's got the potential in him. Obviously, this time of the year where he's at, he's going to be pointing to hopefully some bigger races at the end of his 3-year-old career, but he's that type of horse that we believe has that type of ability.
All right, fantastic. Well, there you see the bottom of your screen where you can access hero status. This son of Flatter, out of a mare who has produced a horse that is sitting on the window stop of Graduation by Tisnow. He certainly gives you that Tisnow vibe, doesn't he? Plenty of substance and some block to him. And we all know with the Tisnows, they only get better with age. So hero status report card, what would you give him, Joe?
Yeah, I'm giving him a strong B. I hate to give too strong of numbers or letters at this stage of the game, right? Because it's so early. But he's definitely one that's been, as I said, catching the eye from the get-go. Even a horse in the morning, when he gallops, Mark Lott keeps using the word classy. You wouldn't think he's a young horse that hasn't accomplished, or really done this much in his training. So it's going to be exciting to see him go a little further along.
All right. Dan Eberly said, just buy them all. Just keep it.
That's the hard part.
That'd be nice. Shout out to Ralph, Leah out there who have tuned in. We appreciate you. And hero status, onward and upward. Very pleased to see him back and moving in a positive direction. All right. Next on the docket, we've got a grade 1 winner in Going to Vegas. She is kind of getting herself back into the swing of things since the Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Turf back on November 6th. She was given a little bit of reprieve, 60 days. She's had a couple of drills. What's the latest with Going to Vegas?
Yeah, she's really just getting back in the swing of things. I know it might have surprised all of us when this time came up 5 furlongs, right? She only had 1 3/8, got right into a half mile. In reality, this work was just another half mile. They kind of just let her kind of go off nice and easy from the 5/8 pull on the training track, not asked to do anything out of the ordinary. Even trainer Richard Baltus has said, she's just not quite back there yet to, her form back at the end of last year, which is not expected at this point. She's really just starting to get that fitness. And when you look at her physically, she's starting to tighten up now. So I think over these next 3-4 weeks, you're going to see a big difference in these works from what you're seeing these past 3 weeks.
Yeah, Carrie, very pleased to see Going to Vegas back, as well as Joy McReynolds. Is there any consideration when you see a horse work over the training track versus the main track? And it's been well documented that many turf horses tend to take to the training track better than the main track, the deeper surface there at Santa Anita. Is this something we could continue to expect for Going to Vegas as far as the surface in which she breezes over until she gets over to the grass?
That's a great question. And I'm not going to give you a definite answer because she's been a filly that's worked over the main track as well in her career with us. So it's not out of the ordinary for trainer Richard Baltus to work her over the main track. She gets over it fine, but naturally that training track, and I think being just in the early stages of her works being back, you're going to see most of these works on the training track. So for me, I'm not going to give you a definite yes or no answer there, but I will say the majority will come on the training track.
All right. As far as grade and where you see her at the present moment?
Yeah, I'm just because I don't think she's quite there yet, I'm going to say B-, not in a bad way. I just think there's a lot more for her to grow. We know what she can do. She is a pretty aggressive horse training in the morning. Even we were out there at the track in the grandstand here, her hot walker said when she got back in the barn, she's kind of a quiet filly in her stall. She's not one to really love attention or love being loved on, to be honest with you. But he says the moment you take her out of the stall, she's ready kicking, going to the track. So nice to see that her energy is where it needs to be.
I always appreciate a horse with good energy, and she
Yeah.
has shown the desire to be a racehorse full on. She's won 7 of 23, 15 of which in the exacta. She's won 3 of her last 4, and nailed a pretty nice hat trick there, and winning that Grade 1 Rodeo Drive. So big things ahead for going to Vegas. Good to see her back in stride in training. It looks as if she's put on some valuable weight. The one thing that I will say, based on the work we just watched, is kind of keep an eye on her head carriage. You know, she does have that tendency to want to lean, but I think it's her way of trying to do more. So that rider is obviously having to kind of try and conserve that energy and save it for the next time. So she is definitely the type of horse that has that high intellect along with that energy. All right, good. Great to see going to Vegas back in stride. Next up on the docket, a horse that as we discussed on the show a couple of weeks ago, Joe, Collusion Illusion. It's been disappointing. I think that's the only way that I could kind of say how I feel.
Yeah.
We know that he's capable of more. Talk to us about the recent drill here on January 21st. We know that he's entered in the King Cotton this weekend at Oaklawn.
Yeah, so on the last show we did, we highlighted that big 5H drill that he had in a team of 5. It ended up being a team of 5. Out of that, Mark Latt was training him pretty hard leading up into that. As we know, he needs to be ready for this race. At the same time, he's not a horse you want to overtrain. So what he did, he kind of spaced out this work and worked him from the gate, which I really like. We've had a little extended gap in between races, and this is kind of that wake up call work to get him refreshed from the gate and have him sharp come race day. Extremely, extremely happy that we ended up getting to go to Oaklawn. We had a little bit of a scare if the flights were going to go or not. And I thought this work was really well. He's on the inside with a solid allowance horse in City Rage, who's coming off of a layoff. Abel Cedillo, who's been working Collusion Illusion for us every time. The moment he turned around after galloping out, he said he's ready. He looked at Mark and I, and he said he's ready to run. So as a bystander, that's what you want to hear from the rider. And you can see him here separating. This is on the gallop out because he only went 5/8, and he's just doing it. He's cruising. So I would say this was a super work from him.
You know what I find interesting is, and we're going to watch his work again, and major props going to Hannah, who is setting these videos up perfectly. In regards to Collusion Illusion, in his entire span of workouts, do you realize that he's only had a total of 3 from the gate? Did you know that?
I did not know that off the top of my head, but I will say from knowing trainer Mark Latt for as long as I have, it does not surprise me. He's not one to do that. Definitely with a horse like him, who was going pretty steady throughout his 3-year-old season, 4-year-old season. Once they kind of get to the point of being fit and steady racing, it's not something that he'll bring him over to. And he's never been a horse that's had technically issues from the gate. If anything, his one quirk is he does not like being stuck inside. So here you see he never really got where the horse got on top of him or anything like that. But that's one thing. So even when we were entering in the Oaklawn race, we didn't want the one post. Drawn 4 was, still not the perfect situation, but it's a lot better than the one horse with this horse because he does not like being, I don't want to say claustrophobic, but being stuck inside.
All right, we've got a question here from Mike Rakowski, but I just want to ask you a pertinent question, knowing that this is essentially only the 3rd time that Collusion Illusion had worked out of the starting gate since his workout pattern began back in May of 2019. What was the purpose for working him out of the gate?
Yeah, so kind of as I mentioned, it was more to sharpen him up, right?
Okay.
We had that little gap from, we were hoping to run in the previous allowance race at Oaklawn. We've been off for a little bit. So this was kind of to give him that wake up call in his mind that he was coming to run. And that was the whole purpose. So come Saturday, he knows it's game on.
All right, Mike, his question. Thank you, Mike, for your question. Explain LASIX to us regarding Collusion Illusion. Do they use this during training also? Basically asking the question, do they allow LASIX in the mornings for workouts?
Yes, they are able to use LASIX in the morning when they work. Obviously, for this horse, come graded stakes races in Southern California, stakes races are not allowed, and that was a big part. Since his most recent race, we've had no episodes of bleeding or anything like that, and that gave Mark the confidence where if the flight didn't go, we were going to consider the Palos Verdes, which entered today for Saturday at Santa Anita. From looking at the PPs, it came up a light field. It probably would have been an interesting test to see if he would have responded back without them. But I definitely think this is the safe play when we, as you mentioned, we need a good response effort here. He doesn't necessarily have to win, though we think he's extremely capable of winning, but we need to see him back to his game.
Well, again, he is entered a race in the King Cotton Stakes. It's a non-graded event, $150,000 the purse. 10th race, Oaklawn, Saturday, 4:55 Central. So be sure to get dialed in there. Despite his lack of current form, Joe, he's been dispatched as the second choice at 3-1, just behind Nashville, who is coming out of that track record-setting race in which he finished second, beaten at 1-5 or 1-9. So let's hope, with the equipment change, the blinkers coming off, Johnny V aboard, that it will make a big difference for Collusion Illusion.
Absolutely.
All right. In reference to the question from Julie, I would say the best phrase and term that I could give you, I'm eagerly optimistic. How about you, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of say I hate to use this word, but it's now or never, right? We kind of talked about it when we did a race analysis way back when for Got Stormy for the 4-star Dave. And we said, today's the day to bet. I think it's the same thing with Collusion Illusion. I think you're going to get value. If we don't go too crazy, betting him, as we all see that he's working well, but it's a competitive race. Nashville's in the race. So he's not going to be the superstar coming into the race. But I do think it's the day that we'll see his effort if he's going to return back to form. And Julie, tune in. We will be doing a race analysis on the race. And we'll have that up either later tonight or tomorrow. So be sure to tune in for that.
All right. Next up on the docket, we just discussed 2 Grade 1 winners. Now we come with a horse that has all the potential in the world. And I know that not only is he a partner, shareholder, fan favorite, but also a favorite of ours, Joe, in Forbidden Kingdom. And he's been entered up today for the San Vicente on Saturday at Santa Anita. Unfortunately, drew the rail, and you can kind of discuss what the idea was in his AM activity and what our trainer, Hall of Fame trainer, Richard Mandela, was trying to accomplish. He's post position number 1 of 5, race 4 at Santa Anita, approximate post time 2 Pacific. Let's first and foremost go back to a breeze here on the 19th of January, 7/8 of a mile, which is the distance of the San Vicente.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So this was his big prep work, right? He did work back this morning, what we'll call an easy blowout, an easy 3/8 to give him a leg stretcher. And we can talk a little more about the reasoning after we see this work. But this was the big prep work for him. And I think we were all, he exceeded all expectations in here. The previous works that we saw, he was all in company. The goal of this work was to try to get him to settle and relax, right? And removing that company did naturally help that. So that did assist the process to it, but he responded well. He's under exercise rider Nestor here. He's cruising. He couldn't be doing this any easier. We always talk about it. And when you see him turn for home, you'll just watch his ears. He's just flipping them up and back and forth. And you can see he's traveling like a happy horse. And it really reminds me of Trevor Denman when he made the call of Beholder, of poetry in motion. When you watch this horse move, I don't think I've seen this horse move as good as he is right now in this moment. Of course, drawing the rail is not an ideal situation, but he has natural speed. We're obviously trying to teach him to relax and settle so we can hopefully get those 2-turn races come and hopefully be running the first Saturday of May. But by no means am I worried with the rail post draw because the tactical speed that he has. And he's dangerous. That's his weapon. And sometimes you got to use that weapon. And, we'll get more into that with the race analysis. But from watching this work, I don't think you could ask for anything else from the colt.
Well, his last start was November 14th at Del Mar in the Grade 3 Bob Hope. And, do note, horse in Messier came back in the futurity and finished second. In this particular race, you have a situation where Bob Baffert has 3 horses assigned, and they're drawn next door, 2 and 3 out. As far as the works are concerned, also wanted to note that coming out of this 7 panel spin, as you mentioned in our pre-production meeting, this horse had worked a 35-3 bullet this morning. So coming off of that stamina-induced workout, coming back with a bullet move, what was the mentality behind that?
Yeah, he's a horse that will be very, very fresh. So the video was posted. It wasn't up on XBTV yet, which is why we didn't show it. And we really wanted to highlight this big work from him. Nestor worked him again this morning. He's sitting in the back of the saddle, not allowing him to do too much. But at the same time, They wanted to let him get out there so he's not overly fresh come race day. He's a horse that he'll come out with running on his mind, and though we want that from the rail, at the same time you don't want him to be overly aggressive. So that was the main purpose, and he looked phenomenal. So you can look on your app and email of the workout video and a few pictures. He couldn't look any better.
All right, so you would give him.
We're going strong B plus here. I maybe even give it the A minus. I truly think I've said it from the beginning. I don't think we've seen this colt look as good as he has, and it's kind of a blessing in disguise. Of course, we hate when setbacks happen, and I think it's worth noting the Bob Hope, he grabbed a quarter when he stumbled out of the gate, and for him to run how he did, setting the fractions he did, is pretty impressive that day. It took him a little while. We had the grab quarter abscess, and it was just kind of hiccup after hiccup to truly get him back on the track. But I think that time allowed him to kind of put some weight back on. He's been going for a while. He's run some hard races. He trains hard on himself naturally because he likes to go. And I hate to say, I think this was a blessing in disguise.
All right. Well, I would tend to agree. And it's evident that, the physical aspect is one note, but the mental game for him, he has seemed to have relaxed and certainly exudes confidence in stride, and certainly a horse that, I'll be really excited once I see him go further.
Yeah.
But I like the progression into his 3-year-old year coming off a 7/8 race. Let's just hope that he gets a clean break from that inside post, unlike what he had last out. And, he gets back. This will be his first start over the Santa Anita main track. So Forbidden Kingdom, solid B+ for Joe Moran. I would have to give him an A based on what I've seen and the fact that he did that drill with consummate ease. Very, very good form in the AM. Let's see if he can translate to the afternoons. All right, we move on to another budding what I think could potentially be a star in Microshare. Unfortunately, she comes out of a race where there was quite a bit of anticipation. She didn't go off favored. She ended up beating 12 lengths to Adair Manor, who absolutely freaked and kind of showed what she did back in the debut and kind of reacted in the subsequent start, but she was able to turn the tables. What has she done since that effort, Joe? And what's the latest on Microshare?
Yeah, she hasn't missed a beat since that race. This is what we're watching. This is her first work back coming on January 17th. She worked back on Monday, a 5/8 solo drill. You'll notice a name on the inside of her from the Bob Baffert farm as time goes by, a very nice horse. And Juan Espinoza is aboard her here, and he's not asking her for a thing. She's striding out all on her own. I love the way she's striding out here. Going into that last race, a few things. She spiked that temperature. We missed a work. We ideally wanted to stretch her out for the first time, but the race was there. And ultimately, I think she just gained a ton out of it. And seeing her train from that race, nothing but good signs. Here on the gallop out, you'll notice they all kind of run into a wall of horses. A little bit of a scary moment there. Obviously, nothing happened, but she didn't quite get to gallop out as much as she probably had in her.
A shout out to Susan Ward. She has obviously been one of the best shareholders from a cheerleading standpoint. She takes great pride in her inventory, as do we. Appreciate your involvement, Susan. Thank you for that very much, Sarah, as well. And for me, from a visual standpoint, I would tend to agree with you. So this work took place on the 17th. She came back to work 5 furlongs. Yep. And you had an opportunity to see both drills. Does she appear to be a bit more keen to you, or is this kind of where she is at the current moment? For me, she looks a little more aggressive, but what's your thinking on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say even in her gallops in the morning, she's been the same way. I think that race did a world of good for her. And obviously we do all of our due diligence of blood work and everything like that when she did spike that temperature. And Richard Mandel is as conservative as they come to make sure she's 100%. But I will say I think she's a different horse, and she was going into that last race. And I just think we're going to see a major improvement naturally anyways, right? We kind of talked about it. A natural progression is usually 2 sprints to a route. Horses can accomplish, one sprint to a route. So I think from a fitness standpoint alone, that route race is going to do a world for her. Mike Smith said that right when he got off of her. And hopefully we come see that. And we have a targeted race of February 4th for her. So she'll have one more breeze leading up to that point.
Well, I think that's really what it comes down to, is that the other point in which you're kind of at the mercy of what the book writes.
Yeah.
And ideally, it would have been nice to have come back if you could have mapped out a 7-furlong race, although it was said off the debut that she would appreciate the added real estate. Pretty penny paid. 600,000 is no short change for her. But I think in the grand scheme of things, I think she's certainly going to make her sire Upstart quite proud. And I think that there's plenty of things to be excited for with Microshare, based on you've got a newly turned 3-year-old that continues to add valuable weight, and she certainly appears to look as if the light has come on. So grade, what would be your grade?
I'm sticking with a solid B here. And I know I saw someone say I was a tough grader. It's kind of when we talk about Dave Portnoy's pizza reviews. If you give out the 10 right away, there's no way to judge the scale after that. There's nothing possibly better that can come. So B is very good. And when we refer back to Forbidden Kingdom, I think you could hear from my commentary. That's an A work to me, but a B+ is a strong grading from the work scale on that end. So I think she's doing great. And I think you're going to see this next work coming up is that final prep work. It's going to be the serious drill for her, and they're really going to ask her to get her, that foundation and fitness prep to go that mile again.
All right. I just want to remind you folks, this is a live show. If you've got questions that you would like to present to, it could be myself, but for either one of our managers from east to west, west to east, Joe Moran or Harry Rice, feel free to send them along. And Leah, she agrees with you, Joe. She's giving you the thumbs up.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
All right. Joe Fuentes said he likes the fact you're grading your curve.
Yeah.
The eternal optimist. So you have to excuse me as it is incurable. But in any event, Dave Shattuck, thanks for tuning in. Joe, we're going to come back to you for the Q&A portion of our Wednesday work show. We're right at about we're heading into the third quarter, if you will. So let's come back to you. We're going to welcome in our East Coast racing manager, and one that has been all over the Eastern Seaboard, it seems, the one and only Harry Rice. And let's bring Harry in. Harry, good afternoon to you, and welcome back to the Wednesday Work Show. All right, let's try and get your audio up and running here. I heard just a little crackle there. You give me a 1-2? Okay. We'll see if we can work our way through this here. All right, so we're having some difficulties hearing you, Harry. Maybe try taking the headphones out. I don't know if they might be on the. All right, let's try this again. Okay. All right, so we're going to work on that audio technical difficulty. We're going to bring Joe Moran back in, and I would think that we might be able to answer just a few questions that may have come up. So while we're in the midst of getting Harry sorted out, if we could perhaps post up a question that has been presented by one of you. Reminder, it's a live show. This is a live production. Mark Erlinson, he referring to going to Vegas, will she be pointed to graded stakes this year?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good question. And I'll say, it's been part of the talks definitely as her training's getting, further along now of mapping out a game plan. Obviously, the goal again is going to be that Breeders' Cup filly and mare turf. In the short term, we got a lot of interesting options, right? From a timeline standpoint, on March 5th, I believe it's the Buena Vista. To me, just from an outside, no commitments, that kind of seems like the logical target to get her back going. So to answer your question, absolutely graded stakes are going to be the main goal, and I don't think you'll see her in anything else unless a no condition allowance race came up as a prep. But at this point, I don't think she necessarily needs it. And I think we'll be right in the graded stakes company on the return.
All right. Well, that's the answer we were looking for. Thank you, Harry. We appreciate that. Again, we do the best we can to answer and try to give you some insight. If you see any of these workouts and you have a question about, could be as simple as lead changes or equipment or those type of things, perhaps we could, we can answer those for you. And I think, Joe, we've got you for another question here before we get Harry back in gear. Harry's going to discuss with us our workers on the East Coast. but I think there was another one, Midwest, that you may have some answers on and can't hush this. So, Hannah, perhaps you could maybe cue that one up, and then Joe could take us through. Kathy, always great to hear from you. Is a horse's age is one equal to a human is 6.5, two is still 6.5, and a three they're 18, and so forth?
Nick, I'm throwing that one at you. I'm not taking that one, so I'll leave that one to you. I actually do not know the answer. If we were talking doggy years here, I might be able to answer it, but horse years, I'm not 100% sure, so I do not want to give out false information.
Well, it's
Google.
Well, here's the deal. Some people have kind of a look when they're yearlings. They seem to look at it as if they're 6.5 to 8 years of age. When they're 2, they're 13, and when they're 3, they're 18, and then when they're 4, they're 20.5. I almost feel as if when they're 3 years of age, 18 to 21 seems about right. But once you get like 4 and beyond, I think they age a bit more, in my opinion. So, Kathy, to answer your question, I think you're most definitely in the ballpark there. But it is pretty darn amazing when you look at a horse's anatomy, and in particular when you look at their hooves and the bones inside, that you can compare that to the human hand. It's pretty fascinating. And one of these days, for our live shows, perhaps we'll bring Dr. Burke in and kind of discuss that human anatomy and how it pertains to horses versus humans and vice versa. All right. So we can't hush this, Joe. So I'm going to put you back on hold. Those questions, feel free to keep sending them in. We'll bring Joe back in once we try Harry Rice back. So let's do that. Harry, are you with us?
Yep, I'm with you.
Woo! All right, brother. You sound fresh and new. Welcome back.
We're working now.
All right. Yeah, no worries. That's the beauty of live television or internet. Facebook, it could be YouTube, Twitter, wherever you may be. Thanks for tuning in. And Harry Rice, our East Coast racing manager, and congrats on your recent success out there in the East. We've got a couple of horses to discuss, and I know that one in particular has become quite popular. But first, I want to kind of jump into Miss Sakamoto. This horse was purchased at the OBS in training sale April last year for $250,000 in a partnership with Saratoga 7. And I believe Hannah was wanting to show Ironworks first, but I kind of want to save him for after. So if we have the ability to show Miss Sakamoto, we can. Talk to us about Miss Sakamoto. I know that she's going to be entered. We're going to do a pre-race analysis, but where is she in her training? I know she's entered a race. How fit do you think she is for debut?
I think she's a very fit horse. We see here she's having just a little bit of a blowout a couple of days back, and this is something that Kristoff does do. She's built like a turf sprinter. There's not much substance to her, so it didn't take too much to get her fit. So it's a week out from the race, giving her a good foundation. She had a very strong 5 furlong work back on the 13th. It was actually a bullet. I believe it was in 102 flat, I believe, if I can remember off the top of my head. But she's down inside here, which I think Miguel Clement, along with myself, would have much rather have seen her draw. Unfortunately, we're on the outside, but she's got a lot of speed here. So I don't think it's something that we have to worry about too much. But we'll go more into that during the analysis later on.
So when you consider the fact that she was purchased out of the OBS April sale, she did breeze 21 flat. She was hit number 414 out of the Lucan Bloodstock consignment. When you peek at her pedigree, she certainly kind of gives you the impression that she's wanting to go further and perhaps on turf. But are you seeing in the mornings, are you seeing that speed evident from what we had seen at the 2-year-old training sale? And do you think it's an advantage with a horse making their debut, knowing that they essentially got that litmus test early on in their career?
Definitely. She's shown even in her gallops that she's a quick filly. And that distance might come as she gets older, but for now, she's shown that speed, and definitely we need to utilize it while it's there. As she matures, she may get the distance, but for now, it's a debut, so we don't want to get too much into her, and we're going to use it as an education as well. I wouldn't doubt her, but it's going to be more of an educational run, as Christoph likes to do with his horses, is give them a bit more of an education than to send them firing first time out.
All right, so safe to say that he hasn't necessarily set her down in the mornings.
Not completely.
Okay. That's a fair assessment. Faye Wright messaging in. Definitely looking forward to it. Miss Sakamoto will go postward tomorrow at Gulfstream, debuting on turf. You had mentioned our pre-production meeting that although they raced on turf today at Gulfstream, chances are they may not. Will she race if they come off the grass?
Yes. And I think that's one of the best benefits of the newly installed Tapeta at Gulfstream is that you're going to see larger fields when they do come off the turf. And it honestly may help us. It's a bit of a wider track. You get a little bit more of a run into the turn. Because if I'm not mistaken, it goes to 5.5 if
Right.
they take it off. So she'll get a little bit more of a run going into the first turn, because she is drawn to the outside with the rail at 25 feet. So it's a bit of a tough ask first time out, but she's a filly that has shown that she's smart and could show her speed and get to the line first.
All right. What would you grade her for that work we just witnessed?
For a blowout, I'd give it about a B.
Okay.
Nothing wrong with it, but just she's still young, still learning. So she'll get to her point where she can earn those B pluses, A minuses, and maybe even an A one day.
All right, buy more than ready. Obviously, plenty of turf influence there. 10% with his first-time starters. She's been dispatched at 6-1 in the morning line. Going postward tomorrow at Gulfstream. Harry, you'll be there 4:42 Eastern. So get tied on the 9th race, and Tyler Gaffleone aboard for trainer Christophe Clement. All right, we'll move on to the next subject, and I think this was quite an impressive debut for a horse that certainly came in with the accolades. And I thought you touched on this horse beautifully. Ironworks debuted back on January 8th. It was no secret at the proverbial betting window, obviously, at 6-5 with the MyRacehorse effect in play. I'm noticing Charge It. This has been a kind of a regular workmate for Ironworks. But talk to me about the drill coming out of it and what was Todd Pletcher trying to accomplish here.
Yeah, so they actually started back on the same day. Charge It ran second in the Mile Maiden on January 8th at Gulfstream. So it just made sense to keep them working together. Gives Charge It a little bit of a better horse to work with Ironworks having broke his maiden. But they tend to switch it up with working inside and outside just to give those horses a little bit of a routine. As we've seen in the past, Charge It is a bit of a better workhorse than Ironworks. Ironworks knows when his job is done, and not that he doesn't gallop out, but he's a very smart horse, and he knows to conserve his energy, and he has a very good gallop out here, but not as good as Charge It. And we spoke about it the last time with his 5 furlong work, and where we thought Charge It had worked a bit better, but the one thing that I like to see is Ironworks gets real low when he runs, kind of squats and keeps going. He has a bit of a fun head carriage to watch. It gives you a bit of that AP Indy look to it, where he's real low. But no, overall, I think this was a tremendous work coming off 2 weeks from his previous race, and we'll point towards February 4th, February 5th. Depending on his work coming up this Saturday. So this is a tremendous work coming out of his maiden win, but it's just the beginning.
Would you deem this work as just a maintenance drill, or were they getting a little more serious than what meets the eye here?
I don't think for him, I think this is a maintenance drill. With him having broke his maiden, he's gotten a little bit more. He had a little bit more out of his race than Charge It did. So And I'm just comparing the two of them because they've been on the same timeline. But I think it's more of a maintenance work for Ironworks because you can see Hector, who is on charge, he's asking a little bit more than Ironworks' rider. So I think, we can take a little bit of a breath here, and he'll have a more serious work this upcoming weekend. But for now, we're just keeping him happy, and hopefully we can keep moving along.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that work this weekend. So, from a grade perspective, what would you give Ironworks?
We'll give him a B plus. He's just off of his last effort. He's a horse that can just do it easily, and something that I like to see.
Any change in temperament?
No, he's just a cool horse. I mean,
Right,
he's playful and he's fun to be around.
All right, great. That's a stellar update. Best of luck, obviously, with Miss Sakamoto going postward tomorrow, and looking forward to that debut. And we're going to keep you in and also bring along Joe Moran, as we do have some questions and kind of get into that rapid fire. We got about 5 minutes or so to answer questions. You can see Bray Glotzer with a question posted up on the screen. Welcome back, Joe. You're watching the Wednesday Work Show here on January 26, 2022. Nick Hines, along with our West Coast racing manager, Joe Moran, East Coast, Harry Rice. And you feel free to send some questions in. But now I'm under the impression that we have one more worker, and that's Can't Hush This. I think we have the capacity of keeping all three of us in. Let's go ahead and bring Can't Hush This in, and then we'll come back with the question regarding Carruthers and that update from Harry. So, Hannah, if you'd be so kind, Can't Hush This in the Midwest with trainer Tom Amos. Joe, I know that you've been in contact with Paige Alvarado. What can you tell us about Can't Hush This? This is a now newly turned 3-year-old by Not This Time out of the Awesome Again mare, Aw Hush. Joe.
I'm on mute, but I'm back in action here. So let me pick up right where I left off. This was his most serious drill that he's had since coming back. That's what Paige was telling me, and said it really kind of caught Todd Amos's eye in the fact that we're not too far away from seeing him get to the races here. This was from the gate. They went 5/8 and 101 and change, and galloped out. Better than company.
63 caliber and Can't Hush This.
And so everything went very well with this work. And, from there, and Harry, you were actually were you on site for this work? So maybe you could, I heard your voice. I was looking at the write-up at the same time. And I said, maybe I'm muted again. So if you want to pick up right from where I left off, that'd be awesome.
Sure. I was down in New Orleans this past weekend. Unfortunate scratch of always hopeful, but stuck around, get some footage of the horses down there. And Tom was very happy to see Can't Hush This gallop out as strongly as he did. He thought he was a horse that had been working good over at Delta Downs, brought him over, I believe, last week to the fairgrounds. And he said, he's just starting to put it together. It's the right time of year for him. If I can remember right, about 3-4 weeks away from, or maybe even less, depending on the condition book from the races. But, he said that was a very impressive gallop out, and he's looking forward to getting him to the races.
I know he certainly looks good. The one thing that I can recall about Can't Hush This, Joe, if you remember, it came in September in 2020, purchased for $220,000. He certainly gave us the impression that time was going to be on his side. Being by Not This Time, what's ironic when you look at Not This Time and what he's done as a sire, winning so early on with horses, 21% first-time starters, 22% with second-time starters, 24% with his 2-year-olds. So you would think, based on percentages, that obviously the maturity is coming into play. So Harry, thanks for stepping in there, and you've had an opportunity to see him up close and personal, and the first time, because he'd actually worked down at Delta, and that was his second gate drill on paper, 6th best of 58. So, Harry, Joe, I'm going to put you both on the spot. Harry, from a grade perspective, what would you give Can't Hush This?
I'll give him a B plus solely based off of that gallop out. He really opened up on 63 caliber. So it was something to see. I think it was better to see in person than on video, just because unfortunately it was a phone video, so it was a bit far away. But B plus.
All right, Joe, what's your take on that?
Yeah, well, I obviously seen it firsthand would be, give me a better gauge of it. It's hard for me to give a B plus just off the video, in my opinion, but I'm gonna say B. Obviously, listening to Tom Amos, you can, and when you hear his voice commentary following the work, and if you haven't, go back to the app and take a look at that. You can hear the confidence in him in that work, and I think that's the most important part. So from there, I would stick with a solid B. Big fan of Not This Time, so excited to see what he can do.
All right, great. Super update. Big thank you to Paige Alvarado with that. Can't hush this, another youngster, newly turned 3-year-old, looking for that debut here in the coming weeks for trainer Tom Amos. All right, we come to the Q&A portion, and let's go ahead and start with the question that was up on the screen that, as we had done a few weeks ago, gentlemen, quickly, we've got rapid fire time. So in regard to Carruthers, what's the latest with him, Harry?
We're pointing him towards either a 6 furlong or mile race. He really liked the 7 the last time, so it's just a decision of whether to shorten him up or to give him that extra furlong. But you never know, there might be an extra that's written for 7. But he's doing great. Had a really good work the other day, so we're gonna just point him to the next race, and which I believe is around the 5th of possibly next weekend or the weekend after. But he's doing real good.
All right. The question from Marcia, and Marcia, thanks for messaging in. She said, I'm in a wheelchair and a boot after recent foot surgery and can't stop thinking about our Malibu Mayhem, hoping he's comfortable and doing okay. Joe, you can provide an update for us. This was a son of Malibu Moon, unfortunately took a bad step on Sunday at Santa Anita. I was in turn pulled up by Ryan Curatolo, who, for all intents and purposes, could have just saved his life by the quick reaction. But what's the latest with Malibu Mayhem?
Yeah, so he, fingers crossed. It's a pretty intense surgery that he went through, and they've made a lot of advances in technology to make this surgery happen, and made it through. Everything was good. He's stable. He's back at the Baltus barn where he'll stay for the next week. I will say it's not the battle's not over yet. These next 30 to 60 days are very crucial. Things can change fast. So it's just, I hate to say holding your breath to a certain extent, but right now he's happy, comfortable. He's with the people that care for him every day. And that's the most important part. So as of now, we couldn't be asking for anything better at the moment.
All right. Thank you. And thank you, Marsh, for sending that message in. Debbie, what is going on with Man Among Men? This question for Joe Moran.
Yeah, Man Among Men. He's at Julie Stacks where he's training under tack. They do some jogging and some light gallops in an arena. I would say he's about a week or so from returning to Santa Anita. So excited about that, but we're not too far off. So a lot of these things when horses are at the farm, when they have specific days of 30 days or 3 weeks, a lot of that has to do with, what that trainer's barn is at the moment. They got to open space to get horses in and all things of that nature. So while we try to stick on the exact timeline, I will say he's on track to return to Santa Anita right as planned.
All right. Thank you, Debbie, for the question. And be great to see a Man Among Men strapping individual get back into stride out there at the great race place. Dave, did I miss on Ironworks update like that, dude? Is he going allowance or stakes next, Harry Rice?
Final decision will be made on Saturday after he works, but more than likely going to the allowance race. Stakes are there if the allowance race can't fill. So, got some options to back this up if need be.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, deferring to the mastermind, Todd Pletcher, a Hall of Famer and certainly a gentleman. He is a pleasure to work with. And, when these trainers get to a certain level, sometimes it can be quite difficult to kind of get that contact and get that communication. But he's been very transparent with his program. And I'm sure both you, Harry, and Joe can appreciate that from a trainer, knowing when these horses are going to breeze, What can you tell us post breeze? Where potentially we may be looking for a race for that particular horse. Going to come back to Joe real quick. Laneway, Leah, she wants to know what's the latest and greatest with that sort of into mischief.
Yep, we're waiting. He'll ship back to Santa Anita any day. Just waiting on the call of when he'll get back in, and he'll have that follow-up nuke scan just to ensure he's ready to proceed to the next step. And then we'll see him go through that similar process of likely going through the underwater treadmill, Julie's, and then back to Santa Anita. If you don't mind, if I can backtrack for a second, I just thought it was a great educational moment since we have all three of us moving back to that last question of Ironworks about a horse that has only run once. And while we all want to see him get right on the Derby trail, that natural progression for these horses, how important that is to not just throw them in the deep end right away unless they're giving you every single sign. And that's why you see Todd Pletcher not make a decision, no matter how impressive that first race was. You want to see how the horse trains out of it moving forward and naturally give him the progression so he can become that top horse that we believe he can. And instant gratification is always great, but horse racing is a game of delayed gratification, and you got to trust the process, as Nick will always tell you. And I learned at a young age in this game. And the moment you start rushing, that's the moment things seem to fall apart. So be patient. Couldn't be in better hands, and excited to see what he can do next.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And, especially for a horse of his stature and, going back to the debut, I remember on a pre-race analysis, Harry had touched on the fact that, there were a couple of works that Ironworks was playing a little bit of catch up, but his talent was able to make up for that and produce that type of performance. So, as he kind of grows into himself, ideally it would be nice to just come back into an allowance race and then think bigger things down the road. We're always Derby dreaming. I mean, that's the nature of the game for that first Saturday in May, but you certainly don't want to cut off your nose to spite your face in that case. So on that note, I'm going to defer to Harry. Harry, you've been involved here with the process, if you will, chasing time. I know that we put it up for debate amongst our committee. Thoughts on the decision to save him for the Rebel? What's your 2 cents and take on that? It's kind of along the same lines of Ironworks, is it not?
Yeah, definitely along the same lines. I think one of the things that makes it a little bit more difficult is the weather situation down in Hot Springs. They missed a couple of days of training with Oaklawn being in the state park or national park down there. They can't use any chemicals on the track to keep it from freezing. So unfortunately, the track will freeze, and you can't train on a frozen track.
Right.
And to go back to what Joe said, one of the best things I was ever told growing up in racing was, if you hurry, it takes longer. And I think that's something with chasing time here. He may not be ready. There's no reason to rush him into the race because it might take longer to get him to his potential if we were to do that. So I think it's a good idea to save chasing time right now because the future's bright for him, and you don't want to burn him out too quickly.
Anything you want to add, Joe?
Yeah, no, I think Harry covered it well. I would just say a win in the Southwest isn't going to get him in the Derby anyways. And on a quick turnaround, a horse that just ran such a big effort, obviously it speaks volumes that Steve Asmussen was even considering running him back. That just goes to show you how good the horse was doing. But in the grand scheme of things, if the horse is doing that good, wait for the big one. He's had that natural progression, having that 2-turn race to prep him for the Rebel and preps him to have that battle test.
Well, I think the other point is he ran September, October, November, December, January. So he basically had a race each month. Yeah. And I think the little reprieve here in between tries would be wise. So want to thank each and every one of you for coming on board and tuning in for the Wednesday Work Show. Again, it's always a pleasure. The show wouldn't be us without you. And that goes for My Racehorse as a whole. On behalf of Hannah, who does such a wonderful job behind the scenes with the production aspect of it, my good friend Joe Moran, Harry Rice, good luck to all of you, and look forward to seeing you in the winner's circle, that's for sure. Until next time, we'll see you on the Wednesday Works. Take care, everyone.